2 months ago, I get asked to fill in for a driver who got injured for just one race in the IMSA Mustang Challenge. Frankly, it was my first time back racing in a pro-sanctioned event in what feels like ages. The team had no data, no testing, no setups, with a new car that they got to get familiar with and new to the series, in comparison to our competition who had been racing in the series with those cars with drivers that had raced in that series with those cars for the past 2.5 years straight. And I hadn't even driven the car yet either. So as you can imagine, the loads of pressure to perform well, because last impressions can either drive more business and coaching and racing opportunities for drivers, or take away yet even what we have. So every result matters. But for the team, for this event, it was more of just a shakedown because they had just rebuilt the car 4 days prior to even showing up at this event from scratch. Now, back to the event. In the 20 minutes total of free practice, we were hunting for a baseline setup, meanwhile me getting used to the car. Because of terrible weather, 15-minute qualifying, we hadn't installed a windshield defroster yet or put on anti-fog on the windshield because we were busy making tons of changes on the car setup in the free practice, and also the week prior just rebuilding a car from scratch or deconstructing the previous car and then applying it to the newly acquired car. So as I was driving blind, as you can see, with the disappointing P8 in qualifying. And to be completely honest with you, it was really difficult to see. It was so much so that I actually would prefer racing in the rain and could care less to drive in the dry for the rest of my life on a racetrack. Of course, all my confidence was stripped once I was driving blindfolded. Not to mention that we then had to solve major electrical issues that will haunt us all weekend long.
Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. One of the classic.
To start race one, was able to gain 2 quick positions off the bat, but still struggled with straight line speed because of that aforementioned electrical gremlin, costing us a literal measurement of 6 to 12 car lengths each lap on both straights on track. So no matter how lethal I was, I could only manage a 2 position gain for race one. So now for race 2. Still same electrical issues, but gained 2 more positions at the very beginning of the race, resulting in a P4 finish. I think second fastest of the race, despite losing 8 car lengths per straightaway each lap, no joke. As you can see in the footage here. So now in hindsight review of our debut race weekend in IMSA for Flying Line Motorsports and myself, for me, it was really good to prove to myself that I still have it after all this time sitting on the sideline coaching, being able to show a lot to myself, but also hopefully all my clients and potential clients that all that I'm very literal and I'm really big on a coach should be able to act upon what he teaches and talks about to a literal. And that's why what makes us so good, and it reaffirms that we know what we're talking about. So that was really good, because everything that I did in the race weekend and always do, even when I do a data lot for clients, it's what I did in the race weekend. So the practices, you don't skip a step, no stone goes unturned. So it was really good to prove that for the team. What an amazing job to them, to no fault of theirs, that we're chasing this electrical issue the whole time. Ford was even trying to help us figure it out. And stay tuned for race 2. There's some news in that. But they did an amazing job. They only had a week in which they received the new car. So by the time they finished deconstructing it, once the new car arrived as a chassis, they could rebuild it up. The only things that it came with were engine, transmission, differential. But aside from that, the rest of the car had to be assembled all within 4 days, and then had to arrive at the track and perform the way that we did. It was a spectacular showing from the team. Mind you though, that this was supposed to be only a 1 race contractual arrangement, and the other drivers that I was filling in for was supposed to be cleared for medical for the next event. Or so we thought, because we get a call once again a week before the event from the team owners saying, we're going to need you to get your suit back on and come up for this event. We're going to need to deploy you for this again. So here we are, our round 2 in the IMSA Mustang Challenge Championship at Watkins Glen, even though it's halfway through the season. This time, the Ford engineers think they have something figured out, and they know the reason for our electrical issues at Mid-Ohio, and we're not having to hurdle as big of mountains as we had to last race weekend, but still disadvantaged to the competition because they've already developed setups for these tracks for the past 2.5 years. And here we are once again joining halfway through the championship. But we are here to ruin everyone's day, otherwise why are we competing? We wanted to go out there so we could attain a rain setup because there was a chance it could rain on the first day if I remember correctly. So in this weekend's free practice at Watkins Glen, it rained, and in dominant fashion posting P2 in only 8 laps that were had just because there was no point in risking the car. We had accomplished that, driving 5/10 effort right now, so we knew we had a ton more in the bag leading to performance. I remember saying to the team on the radio, if it rains, I declare right now we win. Now for the qualifying. Now for the start of race 1 at WGI. We're coming off of a high because we know we have a really good shot of winning this. I'm a confident driver, hyper aggressive, so I go into this thinking, we've got this. We're going to win this. And unfortunately, IMSA has a rule where if a qualifying is less than 10 minutes long of green flag, doesn't count. We didn't know this. Missed this detail in the rule book. Sign starting grid for the race 1, based on your points and the championship. Unfortunately for us, we just joined halfway through the season, so guess where we're starting? So as you can imagine, we show up to grid finding out this news, and you have a not so happy Ethan at all. Not so happy. If I were in the championship and had a bad qualifying, I'd probably be singing a different tune for sure. But in this case, that was not the case, and I was handed the bad set of cards. So I am not happy in that situation. We start the race in position last. So we make our way up to P4. Took us a couple laps, but we make our way up there, and at the cost of our tires, which I had to cord just to make our way through and make it all the way up to 4th place within 45 minutes. So that was all the car had in it, as well as yeah, once again we had corded tires, so our pace surely went down a little bit toward the end of the race. But because of the gap we had pulled and all the hard work we did in the first 3 quarters of the race, it saved us and was our saving grace in the last fraction of the race. Pretty happy with P4, knowing that was all we had, but you know, never content unless we're winning a race. We move into race 2. So you may have noticed at this point now that I haven't mentioned any kind of car issues. That's because the Ford engineers and the team did a good job figuring that out in between Mid-Ohio and this race weekend, and we got everything that we could out of the car with the limited time hunting down a dry setup for this track for race 1 and qualifying. But good news is on our side for race 2. They start the car's position based on race 1 lap time. So in this case for race 2, we start in P3. So you can tell that I'm feeling very, very confident at this point that we will likely bag a win at this point. I'm always hyper aggressive and really good in the race. So of course for the start, going into turn 1, get a good run, stick my nose underneath P2, make it stick at the apex, and I made a mistake that I had never made in so many years on the exit of turn 1, where a mistake that I haven't made honestly since my first race ever in cars back in 2013, where I left the car in high gear unfortunately. So I fall all the way back to 5th after turn 1. Thankfully, we dialed in our setup for that race in the dry so that the car was doing everything that I had wanted. So we were able to claw our way back up to P3 over the course of 45 minutes. So we went from 3rd at the start of the race, P2, I don't think P1, maybe P1, but I know P2 for sure. The high gear mistake that I can't believe I made. You can imagine in pro racing, everything that you lose, it's almost impossible to get back. So had to do everything to claw our way back. But once again, the car setup was so good that I didn't have to cord the tires just to get up to it, or even at Mid-Ohio where the car is having issues. So it's really impossible just to move the car up, even though we still performed well then. And we finished in P3 for my first podium ever in a pro-sanctioned event. In my career, all the years prior, it was in endurance racing where we were riddled. Even in my rookie debut season into pro racing in IMSA years ago, would be riddled with drive-through penalties, mechanical issues, overextended pit stops that would be 4 minutes long, 10 minutes long, so immediately that threw us out of contention, or would get taken out of a race or something like that nature. Team personnel changes, engineer changes. Previously, the highest finish I could get in pro racing would be 4th, just because anytime I was in a sprint championship, we would always have a mechanic mechanical, and anytime in endurance racing, it would be something of the long list that would happen, regardless of performance. If we were the fastest in the race, by the way, in race 2, I think we had the second fastest lap time in the race, so that was really good to know. And once again, I knew we could have at least had a win or a second at least, so that costly mistake. But the good news is, after that podium had secured me conversation with the team owner, or me finding out through the engineer of the team saying that the team owner has awarded me the rest of the season in the IMSA Mustang Challenge Championship for this year. There's only 2 races left at VIR and COTA, so stay tuned. So as you can imagine, the team is also ecstatic about this because it's a good showing for the team. They're a new team, especially after having to overcome and climb all those hurdles to get to this point in such a condensed period of time of only 2 race weekends. The team did a fantastic job. We nailed the setup where the car was doing everything I wanted to and was able to perform. It was just unfortunate with that costly mistake. Always makes you wonder. We could have at least finished second, potentially a win. Just so glad to have Flying Lion Motorsports team on my side in the Ford Mustang Challenge and has my back. They're a young and hungry team wanting to win and aspire to be dominant just like myself. So it's good to be working along people that have the same aspirations and attitude every day in the shop and at the track. Thank you for watching my extremely long video. Had a lot to go over and catch up. Stay tuned for more.